Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Welcome to Wild Child Records. I'm your host, Jay Stoyan. You're in for a big show today. We are moving and shaking. Wild Child Records would like to announce our fundraiser is here today, October 12th. Kerrigan Arms out in Burlington, Ontario. We have a fantastic lineup. We have contest idol winner, Frank Sinatra Jr. singer. We have Dan Lozon coming on, and he's going to be an amazing performer. He's going to perform Frank Sinatra songs. We also have headliner Freedom Train and special guest Dave Ray from Teenage Head. It's going to be a blowout tonight. We're filming this event. We have a 50-50 attached, all about showcasing our employment programs for veterans leading up to the Invictus Games. We just did a really nice interview on SiriusXM, our SiriusXM show with the CEO of the Invictus Games, Scott Moore, talked about all about supporting veterans through games out in BC, February 225. The Disability Channel is going to be there with bells on. We're going to be filming the event. We're going to be part of production. We're doing some media, hopefully included in the entertainment. So it's very exciting. So again, you're watching Wild Child Records. Right now, we are live on Facebook, the Disability Channel Facebook page. We're really excited because on the show today, we have the owner, the founder, Nick Guerin of Dungeon Work Productions. Very exciting guy. This guy's a mover and shaker. He's out there in Montreal. Stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back with Nick Guerin, again, the owner, founder of Dungeon Work Productions, and so much more. You're watching Wild Child Records. We'll be right back.
This is the Disability Channel telling you to check out Nova Scotian country singer Fraser Newcomb. Blending his own brand of Canadian country and often brandishing his signature lobster-shaped guitar, Fraser Newcomb is a bold new face in the country music scene. Check him out today.
Welcome back to the show. On the show today, we have from Montreal, we have the owner and founder of Dungeon Work Productions. We have Nick Guerin on the show. Nick, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I know we were talking a little bit off camera and you were telling me how busy your schedule is. So I really appreciate for you waking up this early in the morning, because I know musicians, they're up late. You guys got to pack up after everybody goes home. So I know you guys don't get in until 3 or 4 in the morning. So thanks for doing this today, Nick.
Yeah, that's right. About 3:30 or so. Yeah, that's not usually that big of a deal, though. It's just when you do it 10 days in a row, that's where it starts to take its toll.
Well, I see you guys because I do MC a lot, so I go to events all the time, and I see the musicians like you guys pack up your gear. It's like, oh my goodness, I can understand maybe when you're 21, 22, not bad. But when you get a little bit up there, it's a lot of work. Like there's this one band that I deal with, and they got so much gear. And they're not young guys. And I go, wouldn't you want to get like a roadie, or are those days gone, Nick? Are those roadie days gone?
Well, I mean, I'm coming to you, talking to you more about on the producer side of things. So, but I do stay with the bands. I do hire. It depends on the size of the show, right? Like, so some of these bands do have roadies, and there's always the production company's assistant roadies as well. And a lot of the times, if the show's not that big, I fall into the category of jack of all trades, and I will help those bands as well as a roadie. So, not too proud to say I can't do that, right? But maybe starting to get too old.
Well, you got to be a team player, right? That's what I love too. Most everybody's a team player; they all help out, so that's great. So, again, Nick's from Dungeon Work Productions. Right now, we're live on Facebook, and we love interaction. So, if people want to comment, we'll be sure to respond again. So Nick, tell us a little bit about Dungeon Work Productions, because I know off camera you say do a lot of stuff. So let's go from there, and then we'll weave around our way.
All right. Well, how did right from the beginning, right?
Well, give us the overview, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a production company first and foremost for concerts and events, primarily located.
Oh, we just lost him. We'll get him back. We'll get him back. So until we get him back again, on the line we have Nick Guerin, Dungeon Work Production. There he is. He's back. Okay, so I don't know what happened there, a glitch, but go ahead, continue, Nick.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so yeah, primarily located in the Montreal area, but also doing shows, every so often in the surrounding areas of Quebec as well as Ontario, and there's no limitations necessarily on that. If the project seems interesting, we might get involved. So after that, we also do merchandising production for whether it's licensed bands or whether it's just local acts that need a good deal. My personal involvement with other companies in the music scene, whether it's in merchandising or booking or performing, and I guess our tentacles are pretty out there. And so Dungeon Works is known for merchandise production, for show production. And I get all kinds of requests really for bands that might just be looking for literally anything, whether it's recording or tour booking or looking for some kind of agency and publicity.
Speaking of merchandise, I want to thank your company and yourself because you provided us with amazing music swag. I'm wearing one of Nick's shirts right now, Kiss shirt, big Kiss fan, obviously. I mean, who's not a Kiss fan? But I just want to say that Dungeon Works Production was kind enough to offer us a big box of swag. How long ago, Nick? Was probably, I think, last year, right? Last year fundraiser. So it was amazing. Must have been 25 gifts. Again, we have a fundraiser tonight, October 12th, and Nick's company stepped up again. Wonderful swag. We have backpacks. We have cups. I kept the Fender one, by the way. I kept one of the Fender cups. Yeah. So amazing. So what we're going to do now, Nick, is actually we've been just putting together a little checklist because we want to tap into your wonderful production company of merchandise and get some toques and hats and T-shirts. So we really want to thank you. We're going to put on it too because we're doing a little bit of a cross-country tour showcasing vets, and we're calling it Vet Stock. So that would be wonderful. So we'll talk about that. Again, Nick's company was kind enough to step up and offer a bunch of door prizes in the way of apparel, rock and roll apparel, everything from Def Leppard to Kiss to Rolling Stones to Ozzy to the Red Hot Chili Peppers shirt that you sent us. That's a really cool one.
Yeah. I should mention that was like a collaboration for a distribution company that I work for, manage, and collaborates with Dungeon Works Productions. So the actual company providing that merchandise, it's all licensed, it's all official, was under loudtracks.com. And that's a website that's worldwide, and I personally oversee it. And it's also being under the umbrella of Rock Plus, which is a Canadian-wide distribution company for licensed merch.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that because we did post Loud Tracks, the logo on our Facebook page throughout this past week. So thank you for mentioning them because I just mentioned your company. So, and I know you got a few different companies. So
it's just people, they might see like, hey, a Kiss shirt. Well, how does he have that stuff right now? It's licensed and it's coming through a licensed company. It's all 100% official stuff.
Oh yeah, you got to give props, right? You got to give the love. So yeah, love goes out to Loud Tracks. Thank you guys. Let's talk a little bit more about your production company. So when you were saying about how you oversee and you so many sort of keys and doors as you're a producer to make sure the show goes, is that really how you got into the music industry, or was it more on the music side, Nick?
No, I got into the music industry like most people as a fan, and I was, fell in love with hard rock and metal, and went from there as a young teenager. Then I became, interested in playing music, and it was bass playing that I got into. And then further down the line, I was able to go on tour with a band. I had a kind of like a hardcore metal band in the early 2000s called Inveigh, and we went across Canada. When we broke up out, and when we got back home, I was interested in trying to think of the next thing to maybe make some money on the side while I would be able to support having a band and touring again. And I took the not so bright decision on opening a rock shop, right? Like as if that was going to make me my money while I went across the country touring. But I had been working as an employee for a distribution company that became further down the line the company I work with today, but at the time just as a warehouse employee. But
Nice.
they ended up being nice enough to be my supplier for the store that I opened with me and a partner in Saint Jean sur Richelieu, which is a city just about 40 minutes south of Montreal. And as a joke, we named the store Le Donjon, like the dungeon essentially. And it was a joke on a room where we kept all the old like crappy shirts at the warehouse we worked at. Crappy shirts, which later on went to sell for hundreds of dollars on eBay, by the way, I should mention.
There you go.
And then from the donjon, like my partner had to quit at one point, life situation, whatever. But from that, we had an eBay store that we just decided to give a bit of a more English sounding name, given the website. And that was Dungeon Works, kind of like, Waterworks, Monopoly, whatever, Dungeon Works Productions. So not the productions part yet, though, just Dungeon Works. Fast forward a year later, the store's closed. I'm looking for something to do. I have a friend on tour who doesn't have a date for his band who's opening up for Pile Driver from Ontario. So they call me to see if I can put together something in Montreal. Hadn't done it before, but from experience as a band, being on the road, not being treated so well, showing up in places where, you almost pay to play, I was like, how hard can it be? I'll find a venue, I'll pay their rent, I'll get some pizzas for the band, I'll put some promotion out there, make some flyers. I think it was like MySpace at the time, do what I can, and got started that way. And that, that friend of mine actually happened to be Mike Marino, who was the nephew of Frank Marino from Mahogany Rush. And fast forward like 1 year later, after having done several other shows since that first one, I get the chance to put on what became Frank Marino's last show in Montreal, for the time being at least, at the Corona Theater, which is now the Beanfield. Putting on that show kind of gives you a bit of a jump in the industry, and people, start to hear about your company and whatnot. And they just start coming to you. When people find out that there's a promoter that will pay money for a band and that things went well, it gets around quick enough that people are messaging you, and from then on, it's really just about the quality of the bands that you're getting offers for.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we go to commercial break? And before we go, Nick, give out your website so people during a commercial break, they can just go to your Google your website and check out all the great merchandise and all the other great things you guys do.
Okay, well, I mean, there's a few, but I'll give you loudtracks.com is one that you go look at the merchandise. Loudtracks with an X, okay. So TRAX. And if you want to go on the Facebook site, I guess, for Dungeon Works Productions, there's the fan site and there's the group page. So you can see all the upcoming shows.
Okay, stay tuned. You're watching Wild Child Records. On the show today, we have Nick Guerin from Dungeon Works Productions. He tells us all about his illustrious career. When I come back, I want to talk a little bit about Montreal and the vibe there, because it's such a great vibe, the city. They love arts, they love entertainment, they love music. So stay tuned. You're watching Wild Child Records. We'll be right back.
This is the Disability Channel telling you to check out pop rock group Brandywine from Seattle, Washington. If you're a fan of pop, rock, R&B, and blues, then Brandywine has a little bit of everything you need to get the party started.
Welcome back to the show. On our show today, we have Nick Guerin. And Nick is also the owner and founder of Dungeon Works. So he's a multitasker. Nick, let's talk a little bit about Montreal and the vibe. It's such a great city with such great history for entertainment, music, and everything else. So tell us your feel about Montreal and what it can offer to other people if they come and visit.
Yeah, Montreal is the city that, I grew up nearby, but that I had to leave when I was about 15 with my parents and go move out to Calgary in the late 90s, and I stayed there for about 6 years until I moved back to Montreal. My formative years, though, as like a teenager becoming an adult and being into music, I was in Calgary. And at that time, it wasn't so happening for the kind of stuff I listened to. So I really wanted to get back to Montreal because Montreal is a rock town, a metal town, a prog rock town, right? And I've always appreciated that. And what makes it different is definitely the European aspect to it, that the rest of Canadian cities don't necessarily have, or North American cities. And there's a particular affinities to certain bands and certain traditions that you don't necessarily have the same fervor for. I would think of how well the prog bands did back in the early 70s. And I would also think about how the religious aspect of back in the 60s, and the churches, like Catholic churches, full control of the government here, kind of set the tone for maybe a little bit of a rock and roll rebellion later on. And you see that from, a few generations of people. It does kind of make sense when you look at countries like Brazil, who fell in love with rock and metal after
Yeah.
when they became a free country in '85, and they had that big celebration, right? So it's not like we had like that kind of dictatorship, but there was that kind of oppressive, older. You hear stories about it before the government changed, and it lives in the blood of the people here, and it's very festive. It's very rocking, but we were crowned or named or whatever you want to call it, like the metal capital of Canada a few years ago. And it's always been known for that, and it's true. People, they do
And
like to
tell our viewers about the rich history of French language, because I know because this show's going worldwide, especially down in the States a lot, and I bet you a lot of people like they still don't know the language French. Like, oh my God, there's French people in Montreal. So tell us, just give us our a little quick history on how much it's sort of intertwined, bilingual a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the area that was New France, like back in the late 1500s, 1600s, and the British came a little later, and obviously there was the wars between the two countries back in the time. But there was French people going all over the country. In the maritime section, which is northeast of Maine for the American listeners, there was the Acadians, which was an offshoot of the French Canadians that were living here, and they ended up getting deported down to Louisiana. At the time, Louisiana was a much taller state that went north and south, and so the Acadians became, after saying it fast so much, the Cajuns. So for all the Cajuns,
that's great.
Louisiana,
I love that
from French Canada. And Quebec was, the one place where they kind of were able to still maintain their culture, albeit it wasn't easy. France lost the war, and they kind of gave up on the people that were still here speaking French. But then the States and Canada, being a British, colony, were at war as well. The States offered the Quebecers to join them and fight the British, and the British counter-offered to the Quebecers to join them, and that if they did so, they could perhaps be granted some language rights and religious rights later, should the British win. And that is how the Quebec province maintained its French culture and language, was kind of, by siding with the Brits, winning that war. And but since then, it's been a battle to maintain it and keep it and preserve it, and that's why laws that people hear about, like, oh my God, they have to change everything to French, and it is about maintaining the language so that it doesn't disappear the way it has watered down in places like Louisiana.
I think that's great. I mean, thank you so much for sharing that, Nick. And it's wonderful that you're so into your culture and you can share that. Like a lot of people, I'm going to ask you something else now, because I know a lot of people don't know, and I'm going to list off some musicians, and you correct me if they're not from the province of Quebec. So let's go. Maybe the most popular, Celine Dion. Would you say the most popular singer coming out of Quebec
Yeah. That sounds right. That's
right. Leonard Cohen.
Yeah, he's from Montreal. Yep.
He's like worldwide too. He might be number 2 on the. I mean, just off the top of my head, right? I'm just thinking. I love the Box, right? They're from Montreal, right?
Yeah, maybe not number 3 in terms of
No, not
popularity.
number 3. I'm just trying
Yeah.
to name, but the Box, they had some great hits, right? Great hits. Boys Without, what was it?
Men Without
What?
Hats.
Men Without Hats. I call them Boys Without Toques. Yeah, Men Without Hats. Yeah, right. They're from Montreal. Who else? Give me a couple other big brands. Arcade Fire. Are they from Montreal?
Yeah, I mean that's it. They are technically. I mean, it's kind of like Americans, and I'm not quite sure everybody where they all came from, but they went to school here and met here and formed. So like the band is a Montreal band. The people in the band are not from the city.
Corey Hart.
Yeah, Corey Hart. I mean, obviously there's like a whole, Quebec, like Hollywood here, right? And it's the same can be said for a music scene. There's bands that start here in the French music scene that don't necessarily get out of the province much, but they do have big careers in France. So there's
Okay, there you
yeah,
go.
or they can go to Belgium, or like, so there's that kind of scene as well. And on the rocker side of that, you have Eric Lapointe, who's kind of like, something like the Bon Jovi of Montreal.
See, I've never heard of him. I've never heard of him.
Yeah, and then you have other, more modern style bands as well. There's one called Cœur de Pirate, which is like a Heart of a Pirate, and she's a pianist vocalist that has a probably more successful career in France than she has here in Quebec.
Wow.
She's still good here, but I mean, she's really taken off in Europe.
So there's like a direct link to France. Like you could there is. See, I never really. I mean, I always knew that, but I didn't know how much of a connection it was. So if you're a French speaking musician,
yeah, it's maybe more taken off in the past 20 years because you have like a lot of French from France. People who have moved to Montreal. The economy, in France wasn't that great in the past 20 years, and there was the opportunity for a lot of them to come here and live. The government of Quebec favors obviously French-speaking immigrants, so we get many people from North Africa and France and wherever that language might be prevalent, albeit without the same accent and the same culture. But there's that whole aspect of the industry as well. But then the bands that make it across the country, you also have the underground scenes for I could say death metal is huge from Montreal, right? Cataclysm, Cryptopsy, Gorguts, all these bands that people might affiliate. I don't know, all your listeners and stuff, maybe they know the Metalocalypse cartoon, or maybe they've heard of Cannibal Corpse or something like that.
Yeah, we got some metal fans. Oh yeah, we got some metal fans for sure.
But that scene of the guttural vocal and the crazy mathematical riffs and complex, what is essentially a heavy, very heavy metal take on eccentric jazz, that scene was very much developed in the early 90s in Montreal, and I shouldn't forget Voivod, which was the godfathers of Quebec metal, not Montreal. They're from Jonquière, an up north city, but without Voivod, you wouldn't really have that on the map.
Speaking of godfathers, we won't go into that part of Montreal. What's going on there right now? We won't touch that. We won't touch that area. Let me ask you this, and then we're going to take a quick break, and then I want to come back and talk about your other career a little bit, whatever you can touch on. But before we go, I just want to give a big shout out to Jenny, right? Jenny's an amazing lady, big in the music scene. I want to give a big shout out to Big Records. I know you guys work together. You're connected. You guys affiliate. You associate. You help each other. So it's wonderful that different music platforms can support each other. So I just want to give a big shout out to Jenny, because Jenny is the one that set up between me and Nick. So thank you very much, Jenny. Really appreciate it. Stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to do one more segment. I want to ask Nick a couple questions about his other career. You're watching Wild Child Records. We'll be right back.
Love is the only way. Love is the only way. Love is the only way. Take a breath. let it be alright. Take a breath, let it be enough right now. Let this moment be what it is. Let this moment be your doorway to bliss. Seeking love, 'cause it's seeking you.
Welcome back to Wild Child Records. On the show today, we have the owner and founder, Nick Guerin from Dungeon Work Productions. Now, he's all about producing great music concerts, helping out musicians. He's also a performer. Before we get to your other career, I've heard this now from other musicians, because I play a little bit, but I'm probably 30 years from getting on the stage. That means never. But I heard that playing bass and being the lead singer is maybe the toughest combination on stage. And I want to get your perspective on that, for being a bass player and the lead singer. Is it very tough for you, or did it come naturally?
So actually, I haven't done a whole lot of that simultaneously in my life, but I definitely agree with the statement. Just basically, you're part of the rhythm section, right? I mean, I would argue that the drummer vocalist can have, just as hard of a time. There is an easy way for some bands to go about it. Like, I'm not going to say that, I don't know, off the top of my head, I'm just thinking of like being the rock and metal fan, Tom Araya from Slayer or Blackie Lawless from Wasp or some, they'll play parts live that, are well adjusted to their vocal patterns, and so it's not too difficult. But then if I'm looking at somebody like Geddy Lee, who's playing, his fingers are flying in all senses and different rhythms than his vocal patterns. It's the famous pat your head and rub your tummy at the same time thing, right? So and drummers in general have that issue too with their feet work and their hand work. So if you have to add like just another thing that's going on with your body on a totally different time rhythm, not time signature necessarily, because you're following the same time signature as the stuff you're playing, but you're not popping in those vocals.
Yeah, I thought drummer might be a little, like watching Don Henley perform, like, oh my God, like how can he play the drums and like sing so fabulous? Like, oh my God, like I'm thinking, but then you watch Geddy Lee, it's like, oh, how can somebody do it like fabulous?
Yeah.
So let's
from Primus.
Yeah, there you go, exactly.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit. I know you can't tell us too much, but delve into your daytime job. So what do you do during the day, Nick?
Actually, I think you're alluding to something that might be more of a nighttime job, but
it is, yeah,
job, right? Because the day job is probably more the rock merch distribution and the licensing and all that. Although yes, maybe half the week's day job and then half the week's night job. I'm also a director of entertainment for what's called the Playground here, which is a gaming facility where I'm not using the word casino. It's not technically that, but people might recognize it that way. So I oversee all the bands that come into play in the entertainment zone of that location, and all the other entertainment such as roaming dancers and DJs and whatever might be there for entertainment pleasure. So that could involve, hey, I could be working with an ABBA cover band the same night that I have some Norwegian black metal band playing downtown, but that is my life right now.
That's great. So you'd be the entertainment director kind of thing? A little bit like that? Yeah.
Exactly. Not
wow.
Kind of, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's an exciting job. I bet you it is. That's real. And whereabouts, can you tell us whereabouts in Quebec the Playground is located?
Yeah, it's on the native reserve territory of Kanawake. So
okay.
It's about 15 to 20 minute drive from downtown Montreal.
Oh wow, that close to Montreal, downtown Montreal.
You just need to take the what's called the Mercier Honoré Mercier. So that's like MERCIER bridge. Brings you south onto that territory, and it's open to everybody that wants to go have a good time.
Well, I'd love to have you back and talk about the Indigenous culture if you'd like, and maybe even bring on one of your associates, because I think it's so important that we share the history of the Indigenous people from Canada, like to the rest of the world, and talk a little bit more about the casino if you could. I'd really appreciate that. But in the meantime, I just want to thank you for coming on today, Nick. Again, if people want to find out more information about what you do, your website, the casino, your company, where could they go again?
Few different places, but hey, if they're interested in merchandising, they could go to loudtracks.com, or they could go to rockplus.com if they have a store and they want to open a wholesale account and have us as a supplier. If they want to check out my upcoming shows, they can go to Dungeon Works Productions on Facebook. Hey, they could go to playground.ca if they want to find out if what's going on over there, and if they want to organize or reserve a night out in a fancy restaurant, play some games after, see a show. I definitely recommend it.
That's great, Nick. Well, thanks again for coming on the show, and thanks again for the swag. We really appreciate the merchandise. It's going towards a great cause, towards our employment programs for persons with disabilities and veterans. So once again, we're going to have you back. Again, say hi to Jenny. Say hi to all the people of Montreal. Hopefully we'll be up there soon. Again, I'm Jay Stoyan. I'm going to come back and wrap the show. You're watching Wild Child Records. We'll be right back.
This is the Disability Channel telling you to check out country singer Dan Wesley White from Del Rio, Texas. Dan is a U.S. Army veteran who blends his experiences with a unique mix of Tex-Mex, Texas swing, rock, and country influences. If that sounds up your alley, check out Dan Wesley White today.
Welcome back to Wild Child Records. I love having interesting people on a show. Like, it's just so exciting to find out about different cultures. I love the city of Montreal. I love the people of Quebec. We're trying to get our channel into Quebec because, we love to be bilingual and have our French programs or our programs in French and help the people of Quebec, persons with disabilities and veterans. So I think I have a new goal, a new mission, and that's to get into Montreal and support Nick's Casino and all the great people that he works with, including Big Records. So again, you're watching Wild Child Records. On the show today, we had owner and founder Nick Guerin from Dungeon Work Productions. I just want everybody to know, check out our website tonight or our Facebook page today. It's going to be going live. We're going to do a live feed for our fundraiser at Kerrigan Arms. It's all about raising funds and awareness for our employment programs for persons with disabilities and veterans through music, right? We have 3 kicker bands. We have Dan Lozon, who's a Frank Sinatra contest idol winner. We have Dave Ray from world-renowned Teenage Head. Wow, Teenage Head. Amazing. And then, of course, we have our closer. We have Freedom Train. Check out Freedom Train. They sell out the venue everywhere they go. So big props to Carl and Tim and Matt. We'll see you guys tonight. Again, I'm Jay Stoyan. If you want to donate or help our platform, go to www.thedisabilitychannel.ca. We give opportunities to the most vulnerable and our heroes. Again, you're watching Wild Child Records. We'll see you next time.
Audio Jungle.